Today I'll be discussing how despite the overwhelming Black and Puerto Rican population present in Harlem, Black and Puerto Rican students were overwhelmingly underrepresented throughout the CUNY and the City College student demographic. I will also be focusing on the project question of how did the 5 demands address the racial inequality faced by the Black and Puerto Rican community and what are its lasting impacts today. Throughout the late 1960s, Black and Puerto Rican students were faced with underrepresentation in the student population, even as the Black and Brown population grew within New York City, with the Black and Puerto Rican children making up 50% of New York City public school population. The demographic at CUNY colleges remained largely within 96 to 98% white. The strike of 1969 fought against the racial disparity faced by the incoming Black and Puerto Rican students. Let's take a look at a chapter in CUNY known as the Fight for Open Admissions and the 5 Demands. This had started with the launch of the Open Admissions Policy. According to the CUNY Digital History Archive, in 1963, Chancellor Albert Bouquer pushed the Board of Higher Admissions into implementing the Open Admissions Policy. This would have guaranteed a seat in one of the CUNY colleges for any New York City high school graduate. This policy was initially approved in 1966, but was not to take place until 1975. Many people were very unhappy with the open admissions policy, with claims of having to lower academic standards coming from CUNY professors or of not having enough state funding for a larger student population, all in favor, despite this would be in favor of keeping the student demographic at CUNY largely white. This brought on the 5 demands, which had aimed to address the unequal opportunities and underrepresentation present throughout CUNY by looking at the current fault, according to the CUNY Digital History Archive. On February 6th of 1969, the Black and Puerto Rican students had presented the 5 demands to President Gallagher. The first demand was to have a separate school for Black and Puerto Rican studies. The second demand called for freshman orientation specifically designed for Black and Puerto Rican students. The third demand called for the students included in SEEK to have a voice in decisions involving the SEEK program. This included the hiring and the firing of SEEK personnel. The fourth demand declared that the racial demographic of the freshman class be properly reflective of the racial demographic of the high school population. And lastly, the fifth demand declared for all education majors to be required to take Black and Puerto Rican history classes, as well as study the Spanish language. From April of the year 1961, over 200 Black and Puerto Rican students had protested on the campus of City College, renaming it the University of Harlem, due to the massively underrepresented Harlem population presented in City College. The Harlem population largely consisted of Black and Puerto Rican students, while the CUNY or City College demographic largely consisted of white students. According to PSC, which is also known as a union that serves as a representative of the CUNY faculty and the CUNY Research Foundation, that at City College alone, white students comprise 91% of the student population, despite the institution being located in Harlem, where the Black and Puerto Rican population remains at a high 98%. On the site of the 5 demands, President Gallagher had initially attempted to negotiate these demands. He had started by stating that freshman orientation would improve by better catering to the needs of Black and Puerto Rican students, and for student participation to be more involved within the SEEK program. Gallagher had also reported that as of September of 1969, all education majors would be required to take at least a year in Spanish, as well as courses in Black and Puerto Rican heritage. However, despite the few demands met, the strike for open admission had continued. This had started on April 22nd and continued to last for a range of 2 weeks. On April 28th, President Gallagher had announced that the college would remain closed as long as necessary to adhere to the demands of the students. He said, and I quote, "Patience daily bright must be the order of the day." However, this never succeeded. That fall, Mario Posanio, a candidate for the New York mayor in 1969, came upon a court order to reopen the colleges with the use of police force. This had led to the termination of President Gallagher. Post the end of the strike, the 5 demands were slowly seen coming into effect, with the development of the Department of Urban and Ethnic Studies program in the fall of 1969. However, the 5 demands were only addressed after the conclusion of the protests has ended. PSC CUNY highlighted that due to the strike of 1969, the Board of Higher Education, in the fall of 1970, there was a heightened increase in student enrollment. The enrollment of Black students had increased from 16,529 students to 44,031 students, and for Puerto Rican students, it had increased from 4,723 to 13,563. To place this in perspective, the incoming freshman class was 75% greater than previous year, with Black and Puerto Rican students alone. Their enrollment in the 4-year colleges had increased by 24%. Despite this favorable fortune, it was short-lived. The 4-year colleges at CUNY had started implementing tuition fees and stricter admission criteria. CUNY had unfairly, in its more prestigious colleges, tended to favor Asian and white freshmen, leaving the majority of Black and Puerto Rican students to be going to the overcrowded community colleges. This was reported by the Atlantic in 2008. That same year, CUNY increased its math SAT admission requirement 20 to 30 points for the 5 highly selective colleges. Department of Education records show that by 2012, the number of Black public high school students enrolled as freshmen into the system's top 5 colleges had decreased by 42%. Latinos dropped by 26%. To put this to a close, the strive for open admissions of 1969 remains such a remarkable part of the history for CUNY. Dave Sanders, who is now a retired guidance counselor but was a previous protester among the 200 Black and Puerto Rican students at City College, described the protest, stating, "We expected them to kill us." This students' self-made protest signifies the need for all students access to a place of higher education where they are able to succeed, demonstrating such a brave perseverance. Through the 2-week strike, over 200 students were able to bring in change, such as with the more Black and Puerto Rican students' admission into CUNY schools, as well as the launch of the open admissions policy.